All right, let's get this set up right now so I can read the chat as it comes up. How is everyone today? So let's kind of wait for some people to join. I'm doing better today because I got to sleep in. Yesterday was tough. We had daylight savings time here in Illinois, so I felt like the babies were up. Well, they were up at like 6:45, so that's like 5:45 regular time. So then they were just off the whole day. Hannah only slept 25 minutes the entire day, so it was rough. All right, let's just make sure that the sound is working. So go ahead and let me know that you guys are on, that you can hear me. Let me just, hey, Lindsay. Thank you. Hey, Kirsten. I'm assuming Kirsten under your husband's name. Nice to see you guys. Okay. So everything's working, right? Sound, all that. I had to test out the microphone before I started, and I think I got it working, but it was not working at first. So of course, I'm a little nervous about that now, but it appears to be working. So, all right. Now, I want to tell you most of my notes, almost all of my notes are done on Friday. Usually on Fridays is when I get all of my Gently Led Sisters topics figured out, done, thumbnails made, all that. So, hello, KJV. So everything was done this past Friday with my notes. So I've had this topic picked out since then. I did my outline, I sent it to myself, all that good stuff. So just throwing that out there, that's kind of my routine. I do have next Monday's already picked out though. We will be talking about, I'm going to have one of my church ladies on. She's been on before talking about postpartum stuff, but she will be on this coming next Monday, and we will be talking about budgeting, money saving tips. I know people are kind of having to tighten their belts a little bit more, watch their wallets when it comes to rising gas prices. So we will be going over different things. Now, believe it or not, I used to be a penny pincher. I mean, I still am, but not to the extent. I was like extreme couponer, getting stuff at CVS for free all the time, buy one, get one free, getting both free, with coupons. So, $35 a week grocery budget, crazy times. So basically I had to get all of my toothpaste, soaps, deodorants for free because I had that $35 budget to work with that as well. So I played the coupon game. I did it all. We budgeted down to the last penny. This was back when we were paying off debt. So we've been run through the ringer when it comes to penny pinching. So I have some tips. Sarah's been jotting things down. She has a lot of tips. They're also trying to pay down stuff right now. So, join us next Monday. I think that'll be a good show. Hello, Raquel. All right. But today I wanted to talk about just the danger of bitterness, because I know as women, we often, and men too, men struggle with this as well, but women often have a hard time when it comes to this subject. So I wanted to talk about it. One of my friends, Ashley, and I were talking today, and we were wondering if there were any other IFB women's channels out there. If you ladies know of any, could you please leave it in the comments? Most of the ones that came to mind, they weren't IFB, first of all. And they kind of just promote some stuff that we don't like, different John MacArthur things that I don't agree with him on salvation at all, or what he thinks about the blood of Christ or any of that. So, and then maybe other women that just, I feel like are a little over the top when it comes to some of the stuff, and there's not much balance in their life. So if you guys know of any good channels, go ahead and leave it, in the comments. So I would love to know. I can't really think of anything. I think these channels are needful, but I can't think of many IFB. I can't think of one IFB channel out there other than this one. So leave them in the comments if you have any suggestions. Yeah, Kirsten, we actually can save money. Posting memes is fun. It makes the misery a little bit more fun. But yeah, we can definitely save money as well. So that'll be next week. But let's go over some verses where it kind of talks about bitterness. If you do a study on bitterness, you're actually going to find that there's quite a lot in the Bible about it. God warns often about this. And, we'll be going to some of these reasons why I believe he warns against it. But I don't know if going through life, you have met a bitter person, and the bitterness that they hold, it defines who they are. They just exude bitterness, and it truly is something that comes from the inside out. And I've also, on the flip side, I've met some women who just exude peace and joy and love. So there are, two sides of different coins, not two sides of the same coin, but the Bible often talks too about, how can you basically produce both those things at the same time? How can you send forth bitter and sweet? I didn't even put that verse in there. It just came to mind. So it is hard to have both bitterness and sweetness. And I don't know about you guys, but I want to exude peace and love and joy. I don't want to exude bitterness or hardships. I want to be like the men that were thrown in the fiery furnace. When they came out, they didn't even smell like smoke. That comes to mind often. Even though we go through trials and we go through hard things in life, I don't want people to look at me and I'm defined only by that trial. I want to come out where I don't even smell like the smoke. So, hey, Ashlyn. Okay, so let's just look at some verses first. I'm going to throw these out there. Ephesians 4:31 says, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice, and be kind one to another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you. So we kind of see two opposites here once again. On one side, you've got the bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, evil speaking. And then on the other side, you have kindness, tenderheartedness, forgiveness. Romans 12, 17 through 21, recompense to no man evil for evil, provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirsts, give him drink. For in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. And then Ephesians 4:31, let all bitterness. I already read that. I don't know why I put that twice. I guess it's important. Acts 8:23. For I perceive that thou art in the gall of bitterness and in the bond of iniquity. So here, his perception was correct when he was writing these people, that he perceived that they were in the gall of bitterness, which means that you could actually see it. He could tell. So I do believe bitterness is something on your countenance. It's something that comes from inside. It's something that will affect every area of your life. And so we're going to talk about the different areas that bitterness can affect you. And this is not something that I have always had 100% victory over in my own life. I have definitely had to work on it. I do believe, the Bible talks about a root of bitterness springing up. And I do believe that it's very easy for bitterness to take hold. And we have to be very, very careful. And we have to constantly be weeding the garden of our heart and getting that bitterness out, because it can take over our countenance, our spirit, our life, and it can just have a cascading effect into every other area. But oftentimes in the Bible, bitterness is tied to the tongue. And our words have a way of showing if we're bitter about a certain subject or if we've moved on after the hurt. If someone's constantly bringing up past hurts, constantly talking about it, that's all they can talk about. That tends to define them. Bitterness has a way of overshadowing every area in our life. And for some reason, women have a harder time dealing with this than men do. But I will say I have met bitter men as well. And it also defines their entire life. So I think because we overthink things, that's where it gets women, that's why bitterness can take hold, because I do believe it is something that we have to root out and get rid of. So if we're not taking an active part in doing that, I do believe that it can overtake us. So let's go over some ways that bitterness can affect us and how we can move past the hurt and let things go, because we're all going to have hurts that come in our life, but that hurt does not need to define us or take over our lives. We can learn to move on and find joy and contentment. So Let's talk about when bad things, hello, Ashley. Let's talk about when bad things happen in life. Okay, because we all have bad things that happen, but let's specifically talk about death. I am no stranger to the subject of death, or to, when death has happened in my family. When I was 17 years old, all of you guys know, my dad died, and I bring up his death on this show just to show that I am no stranger when it comes to it. Obviously, it's not something that I like to dwell on. I miss him, as any of you that have lost a parent, I'm sure you miss him, especially on special occasions. He didn't even get to walk me down the aisle. He never became a grandpa. He was only 3 years older than what I am now when he died, which is very sobering to me. So, but I bring it up just to say that I have gone through that. Now, when I went through that, even as a 17-year-old girl, I was strong enough in my faith. I had been saved since I was 4. I've been in church my whole life, been reading the Bible my whole life. So that definitely helped establish that foundation. But I never blamed God. I think it's okay, especially when you're grieving, to just kind of, why? I ask that sometimes. Why did you take my dad, who's a good father, a good husband? He's involved in church, involved in ministries at church. He was like the Awana captain. He kind of ran Awanas and stuff at church, Sunday school teacher, deacon, all that stuff. So definitely I asked God, but I was open with God. I didn't try stuffing down my feelings. I'm not one that does that as it is. And I'm not one to sugarcoat things. And I didn't with God. I asked him, why? Why did you take my dad when, there's deadbeat dads in prison that have committed murder and, all these other things? You could have taken them. You could have given them this disease. So I'm not going to say that I didn't question, but I do believe through God's word, he gave me peace when I would ask those questions. I don't understand the mind of God. I don't understand why he does things, but I do believe the Bible when it says all things work together for good to them that love the Lord. So I did have faith enough to believe those verses, and they did help me through the hard times. Realize that you aren't alone. And I think now in the age of Facebook and the age of Facebook groups and all these different things, that is very apparent to most people. They're not alone. Someone's been through whatever you have been through. If you had a day where you lost your dog and your car broke down and you had a parent die and you were at a bank and it got robbed, and I'm doing extreme examples, but I feel like there's always someone out there who's gone through it. So I think sometimes that helps in and of itself, just knowing that there are people out there who have been through what you've been through. So definitely try to find them to talk to. I know that's always helped me, especially connect with people maybe that have lost a parent at, a crucial time in their life, older teenage years, so definitely you will always have something in common with someone. And sometimes community helps you get through things, in your life. Take the time to grieve. I believe Americans have this twisted view that when you go through the death of a loved one, you need to just grieve for 3 months and then get over it. Move on, grieve for 3 months, you're done. That's not it. Hi, Jesse, and hi, Celine. It takes a good year. My voice is really raspy tonight. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. But it takes a good solid year for you to even start coming to grips with some of the emotions that you're feeling. I was in this fine arts competition. You guys know how I love to write. And I wrote I wrote a fiction story and I wrote an essay that year after my dad died. And I took first in both of them, but the essay was about the different stages of grief. And I did a lot of research, leading up to writing about it. Plus I had lived through it. So, it just kind of went through those 5 main stages of grief that you go through. First you're kind of in shock, and then it's like deep searing pain, and then it's the questioning, and then it comes to acceptance, and then it comes to moving on. So there's all these different stages. And I definitely experienced all of those when my dad died. And then when one of my best friends died from cancer as well. Hello, Marissa. So I definitely did go through all 5 stages, but it took over a year. And even now still, I cry over both the losses in my life. I've also lost a couple babies to miscarriage. So grandparents, I've lost all my grandparents are gone. And, family members, different things like that. So um, obviously with the ones very close to you, it's going to take a lot longer to get over it. And I don't think you ever get over it totally. That's one of the things that makes heaven so beautiful. The thought of heaven so beautiful is knowing that when we go to heaven, we're going to see all of these, people that have gone on before us that were in Christ, all of our loved ones that were saved. So that is one of the things that makes heaven sound sweeter. So no, and it is a very long process, Ashley, exactly. And 4 months. And that's how Americans are. They think 4 months, you're done, move on with life. No, you haven't even begun to experience all the emotions of those 5 stages of grief. It takes a lot longer than that. So, and even still, you're going to carry that with you, but it does not need to define you. I tend to be the type of person, I don't like exhibiting my sadness in front of other people. I'm more of a private griever. And so there's still days when it seems to be in the shower or late at night is the times when I grieve. And there's still times I grieve. And it's been, 4 years since Kelly went to heaven. My dad died when I was 17. So I've been without my dad longer now than I had him, but I still grieve sometimes. Try to find joy throughout your grief. I know one of the things that always helped me when I was in the very depths of it was good memories. Good memories, looking at pictures, crying if I needed to, remembering the good times that you had with them. It sounds cliche, but it's true. That really does help you as you go through your grief. And then do something to help find closure. This, I think, is really important. I would throw this out there too. If you have had a death of a baby or a death of through miscarriage, one of the things that helped me was I bought with each of my miscarriages something that it kind of represented their life. And it was a necklace for me. I like to wear jewelry. And the first one had little footprints when the baby died around 9 to 10 weeks. It had the baby's due date, the baby's birthstone that they would have been born. And then the second one, my best friend bought me because she knew I had done that with my first, and she really liked that idea. So my best friend has been through many miscarriages, and it helped her to name the babies. And so she has a little box with a poem and the name of the baby. She picked out all D names. I know Devin was one, Dakota. I can remember some of them. Names that might have worked for either or because she didn't know what she had been having. So she made little memory boxes for each of them, put the name poem in there, just some stuff. She had to go to the hospital for 1 or 2 of them. And so she kind of saved that, and that seemed to bring her closure. So I definitely think closure is very important. I also think it's one of the reasons when my own dad died that my mom wanted to make sure that even my 5-year-old sister at the time, who doesn't remember much about my dad, but she didn't shield her from the fact that daddy was gone, daddy was in heaven. And she wanted her to see him in the casket and, kind of go through that, because that brings a sense of closure. Like, this is final, he's gone. And I think that is important. And then also just find joy in the hope of heaven. We can choose to live out the rest of our life in bitterness or in joy. And I would much rather live out the rest of my life in joy and not just bemoaning the fact of, I wish they were still here. I wish they were still here. And although it's very painful and it hurts at times, I choose to live with the hope of heaven and looking forward to that day. And it makes heaven all the more sweeter when I think of that. So there's just some tips. Every situation will be different. I've never lost a child, and I can't imagine the pain of losing a child, and your grief might be deep for a very, very, very long time. But you can still apply some of the principles here. And just remember that it's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve. you have to give yourself that time to do it. Oh, I'm sorry, Ashlyn. Yeah, it's always the middle of the night is either when you have the extreme mom guilt, or sometimes I still have regrets from the way that I treated my dad because I was a sassy teenager, and I still have regrets. And I think back on those and I can't think about it in the middle of the night. Oh, that's when it always comes, isn't it? So I just have to push that out of my mind, and I have to think of the good times I had with him. I have to think of the daughter daddy dates that I went on with him when he would tell me, you're going to make such a great wife one day, and you're going to make such a, wonderful mom someday. And I can't wait to meet your kid someday. And, something that brings me comfort is knowing that although I've had 2 miscarriages, I would like to think that my dad is running the streets of gold with those babies right now. So that's one of the things that brought me the most comfort when my miscarriages happened, knowing that I believe, like David said, that he's not going to come to me, or she's not going to come to me, but I will go to them and I will see them in heaven. So who knows, maybe God said, hey, Dan, my dad's probably been there in his mind 30 seconds in heaven. He's like, hey, Dan, there's a grandchild, coming your way. So who knows, that brings me hope. So I try to focus on that rather than I just miss them so bad. I can't believe God took them, different things like that. So, but let's move on to financial difficulties. This is a big burden and can bring a lot of bitterness in some people's, especially women. I have seen it play out. Jealousy, discontentment, and this bitterness can be a root in there. So one of the things I've done, we've always been poor. We've always been poor. I saw a meme, speaking of memes, Kirsten, I saw a meme where it was like these 2 guys talking or something. And they're like, the reason that, how do I stay so calm when, gas prices are going through the roof and everyone's panicking, not knowing what to do? And they were just like, well, it's because I'm old poor. These people are new poor and they don't know what it's like to be old poor. And I'm old poor. Since the day we got married, my husband has worked a factory job or been a pastor. Neither one pay very well. So I have had to learn how to cut corners and use the most of what God has given us. And we've always paid our bills. We have 8 children and we've always paid our bills. We've never had our lights turned off. We have, never had to go on food stamps and stay in there. I think there was maybe one time when my husband was between jobs. I can't remember, but in the 21 years, it's been pretty much 21 years and 9 months or something like that of him, buying the groceries. And I do believe in unemployment. If you are laid off of a job, I believe that's why it's there. I believe it's there for a tiny short time, but not to take, advantage of it and just live off of it and use that grocery money for something else. So there is a time and place for everything. And I'm glad that we take care of, our widows or different situations like that come up. So it is there for that purpose. But one thing I learned to do, hey, Joyce. Hey, Sarah. One thing I learned to do was control what I can and let go of what I can't. Okay, so when I say control what I can and let go what I can't when it comes to financial difficulties, there's only so much as a stay-at-home mom I'm in control of. And if it is stressing you out being in charge of your budget, tell your husband that he needs to take over, because it's going to be really tough on you if if you are constantly stressing out and getting an ulcer and not knowing what to do because I can't pay the bills. Let your husband take over. I did the budget for years and years and years. And my husband has actually taken over the budget in the last couple of years, and I love it. He pays the bills. He gets to worry about it if we're short. We have a budget. We have a set amount. My piano lesson money kind of covers if I go over the budget. I really only use our personal debit card for groceries when I have a budget. So if I go over that $260 a week, I cover it with my piano lesson money. So I have a separate account that all my piano lesson money goes into, and then we have the joint account. So I only use the money from the joint account pretty much for that set grocery bills, and I still pay the bills too, electric and all that stuff, but it just makes it a lot less stressful. So I would suggest, if you are very stressed out about this, talk to your husband, have him take over. Hey, Amber. That's my suggestion for that. And then find contentment in what you do have. Look at the blessings. Your husband puts a roof over your head. Most of the ones that watch are stay-at-home moms. Maybe you're in a tough situation where you have to work. I maybe just try to talk to your husband and see if there's any way at all. Let's see what we can cut. Can I possibly stay home? What do we need to do to the budget? Can we get rid of the cable package? Can we downgrade our cell phones? Can we, eat rice and beans once a week? Someone in the Gently Led Sisters group today just asked for meal ideas because they're trying to cut back. So, what are some ways that we can cut back? Can we not go to the movies every week? Could we, I don't know, only shop thrift stores, only do Goodwill, which I pretty much do anyways, that or Amazon. So, try to come up with different ways that you can slash spending, but then find contentment in what you do have. So it's secondhand clothes. Secondhand clothes are like in, right? They're always in. In my mind, I've been shopping secondhand clothes since I was a teenager. So you have to find contentment in what you have. If you have maybe a house that's not a mansion, decorate it really cute. Paint doesn't cost very much. Freshen it up with a coat of paint. I have found so many decorations at Goodwill. Like I said, one of my walls, my favorite wall in the house is just china plates that I found at Goodwill, and I made decorations out of those. I love that wall. And then handmade things. One for my best friend. She made a Scrabble picture with all our names interlocked, and then family and love and different words like that. And then also a wooden sign that says "We chose forever," that my other best friend Kelly that died, she had made for me. So that's like my special wall, and it brings me a lot of joy every time I look at it. And it's right in my kitchen, so I see it every day. So that's one way I've tried to find contentment in what I have. And then don't compare to others. Don't compare yourself to the Smiths and the Joneses. I've tried not to do that through the years, because I truly am happy for my very little house that I live in, because it's so little, I always know what the kids are doing. I can keep track on them. They're not in this huge house spread out all over the place. I have no idea, or I have no idea what's going on. I know what's going on pretty much every second of the day because they're right there with me. So comparison is the thief of joy. And when you start to compare yourself with others, it can cause a root of bitterness. Why don't I have what they have? Why hasn't God blessed me? I say blessed loosely, but I don't think material possessions are this way God blesses you. I think God blesses you by the friendships that you have in your life, and by meeting your needs, and by providing money to pay the bills and pay down debt and put the food on the table. And I see God's blessings all over that. I'm not into this wealth style preaching of like Joel Osteen, or the other prosperity gospel out there. I think the Bible says, if we have food and raiment, to be content. And I stand by that. So hi, Michelle and Stephanie. Yes, we did the envelope system. We can talk about that next week, Sarah, if you're listening. Yep. And I've done all of those things. And the envelope system is good. We kind of just basically have a set budget where I know electronically I can't go over here. I can't go over here. So we've kind of graduated to that. We don't really do cash much anymore, but we did at first when we were paying down our debt. So exactly, Michelle. Learn to be happy with what God's blessed you with. Being jealous or upset doesn't change the situation. And that's absolutely correct. Let's talk about sickness. I know that there's a lot of people here, a lot of women that listen, that maybe you're chronically ill. And when you're chronically ill, it's really hard to not get that root of bitterness springing up. And I have said some of this, I've seen people go through this who I knew that were chronically ill. And it's hard not to, I guess, when you are just not feeling good. and, you have all this pressure and you're still a mom and you have to do things and you just don't feel good. It's hard not to get bitter at your lot in life. Why me? Why am I so sick? Why do I have to deal with this? Why did God put this thorn in my flesh? Different things like that. So, I would suggest for this. Now, I have not really had any chronic illness personally. I did have hepatitis C at one time. That just kind of made me tired, but I feel like I'm always tired, even since I'm cured from it. So I don't sense much of a difference. But I have known people that have dealt with chronic illnesses, and some of the happiest people I knew were people in wheelchairs. And one of the things that they did was they looked outward. They tried not to look inwardly and dwell on maybe what they were going through at the time. They were always looking outward and trying to be a blessing to other people. Take one day at a time. I think, especially for someone who's chronically ill or in a lot of pain, they tend to think and start to panic about, is this going to be my whole life? Am I going to have to live the next 40 years like this? Am I going to have to live the next 50 years like this? Now, I will say I do have chronic pain. It's not really something I dwell on, though, because I just have it and I just deal with it. And some days are harder than others. So I'll just take some Advil and Epsom salt baths and try to slow down a little bit. And I have had days where I am incapacitated by the pain, because I have a bad back. I've had, I have a couple herniated discs, and I have degenerative, there you go, degenerative disc disease. So my discs aren't getting better. They're still deteriorating and becoming thinner. The cushion between them is becoming thinner. And so I deal with a lot of different hip problems too because of that and stuff. So I can't think, though, I'm going to be dealing with this for the rest of my life. In my mind, I just take it day by day. And when I have a good day, like today, I went to the chiropractor today. So then the rest of this week should be pretty good. After I go once every 2 weeks. And after I get adjusted, the next few days are pretty good days when it comes to pain. So I just praise God for those days. Today is a great day. I barely had any back pain. I almost always notice it to some extent, but the days I teach is a little worse because I'm sitting the whole day. When I sit the whole day, it's a little bit worse. But I try to just thank God for the days when I go to bed at night. Thank you, Lord. This was a good day when it came to the pain, and think outwardly. And I try not to think of, I have the rest of my life. What am I going to do when I'm 90 and I have to use a walker? And, I have no discs left. And it's like, I can't think that way. Don't blame God for it. Ask him to sustain you. That's kind of what I've done. I don't blame God for the pain that comes in my life, or, he is the one that gets me through the pain in my life. He is the one that gets me through that. And I have noticed too, when I have been completely overwhelmed, it's kind of when I hit rock bottom and I cry out to him and I say, Lord, I can't do this pain anymore. I feel like he knows it, and he gives me what I'm able to bear. And then he brings me relief, usually by that evening or the next day or the next couple of days. So I have had a couple of weeks where I was I would say pain 1 to 10, probably an 8. It was that bad. But then it's like, once I get to the point where I just feel like I can't do this anymore, he kind of takes it away and brings me comfort. And then I start to heal. I don't know what it is. So, yeah, I have 8 kids who love you. I definitely do. Definitely do. So, and that was another thing, enlist the help of friends in your church. And in the times when I've been incapacitated by pain, my kids have had to just pick up the slack, and they do a great job. And I kind of just direct things from my chair with an ice pack on, or the couch with an ice pack on. So, and I thank the Lord, I did not have pain problems until 11 years ago. So my kids are older. If I would have had this pain when my kids were younger, it would have been bad. When they couldn't do things for themselves, and I had to take them potty for everything, and I had to cook, and I had to clean, it had to get done by me or it wasn't getting done. Thank the Lord, I did not have these problems till 11 years ago. So if you have to, enlist the help of, that's why the church is there. We kind of, as ladies, we can help each other through these things. When there's postpartum things, even when there's emotional things going on, we can throw together an extra meal, or, I can send one of my girls over to clean, or just to keep you company if you're having a really bad day. There's different things that we can do as women to help each other out. So that is one of my tips with the sickness, but mainly just looking outward, trying not to just wallow in the pain and the misery and, just woe is me, my life's so hard, just deal with it and try to help others, and that'll bring you joy. Let's talk about marriage though. Bitterness in marriage is a big one. I think, okay, so bitterness at God is one of the worst. I think that is the worst when it comes to bitterness. I would say secondly is bitterness in marriage. I would say third would be bitterness towards other loved ones, such as children, parents, different things like that. And then after that, I would say church. Bitterness in church happens quite often too. So in order of what's going to affect you the most, I think it would go by that order for sure. But let's talk about bitterness in marriage. How do you keep bitterness out? How do you keep bitterness from starting? A lot of this is going to be dependent on the man. The Bible specifically addresses men not to be bitter towards their wives. So that right there shows that men can become bitter. My husband's really good about this. He's not, he lets things go. He never brings things up after they've been dealt with. And so I try to do the same for him. So that is one of the, hey, Aaron and Melissa. So that is one of the things that I always get this word wrong. That's one of the things that I've always striven to do is to treat him the same way he treats me. And, we try to resolve issues quickly when they pop up. I don't like never ending things. I like things to be taken care of. I don't mind confrontation if it's going to resolve the issue quickly. So I don't let things fester. I'd rather hit them head on and just deal with it. And that's kind of how me more so than him. He's the type that doesn't like confrontation, and he tries to avoid it, but I don't mind it if it's going to resolve the issue. So I would say definitely resolve issues quickly. Once a situation is resolved, don't visit again. Don't keep bringing up, do you remember this time 3 years ago on Valentine's Day when I said I wanted this and you came home from work and you were so tired, you just went to sleep and my whole Valentine's Day was ruined. He doesn't need to hear that. Just let it go. Let it go. Especially if he felt bad about it and tried to make it up to you the next day. Valentine's Day is overrated anyways. I'm just throwing that in there for free. But especially if he tried to resolve it, don't keep bringing it up. Show grace as he shows grace to you. And that's one thing that I try to do with mine. Definitely. I try to, think of how he lets things go. We're not all perfect. We all have annoying things that we do. So don't let issues fester. One way that I think you can keep bitterness out of the home is, especially for us women, with our husbands. I've seen a lot of women do this to their husbands, and it really promotes the spirit of bitterness to start in a husband. I think they don't like it when their wives do this. And I speak coming from the experience that my husband doesn't like this, but I don't like it when he does this to me as well. And I'm sure you wouldn't like it if your husband did this to you. And that is, don't try to change him or micromanage him. I don't like being micromanaged, and my husband doesn't either. So even if there's something about him I don't necessarily like, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to focus instead on the things I do like, and I'm going to talk to him about those, and I'm going to encourage him with those, and I'm going to respect him in the areas that maybe I disagree. Not every two people are going to get along exactly, or the areas that I have an issue with, I'm going to let that go. So I absolutely despise it when people try to change my personality or they try to micromanage me. Micromanaging someone could be as simple as, why do you always do that? Why do you always do this? It really bugs me when you do this. Do you have to do it that way? Why are we doing this? Why are you doing that? Just constantly questioning everything he's doing. Men hate it when women do it to them. I hate it if someone tries doing it to me. So I'm not going to treat him that way. So Show your love, figure out his love language, and show him the way that he needs to be shown. We all have different love languages. And I do believe this can help eliminate a lot of the bitterness just by figuring out how he wants to be loved. A lot of men, they don't know how to convey exactly, I am loved when you do this. And so if they feel like you're overlooking that, they tend to become closed off to you, become bitter, stop communicating with you. So I highly encourage the love language book. Have him take the test, have him figure out what his love language is. And I really believe that would help your marriage a lot. I agree, Ashley. She said, God can change hearts. If we focus on the good, we become less bitter and more thankful for our husbands. And I have really found the power through prayer. If I am praying for a certain situation, God either change my heart or change my husband's heart. God always does. And God can work on our husband's hearts way better than we can. When we try to do it, it comes across as micromanaging or trying to control them or trying to nag or whatever. Yes, it does say you're not quite good enough. I want my husband to love me for who I am. I don't want him to be like, I would really like you if you would change this about you. I would really like it if you did this. That would really hurt me. So, and I don't know if it's having that type A personality, or maybe just all women are like this. We want a man to love us for who we are, right? And obviously there's always stuff that we can work on to improve ourselves. But if we had someone constantly nitpicking and saying, you need to do this better, I'm not going to do that to him because I don't like it being done to me. So I do think that translates into you're not good enough. So put him first, and chances are he's going to put you first, especially if God's putting on his heart that he needs to love you, like Christ loved the church. And if he's really trying to be a good husband, then he will put you first. I have found in my marriage, just being direct works, not beating around the bush. And I'm not one really even for small talk. If any of you know me, you know how if there's something to be dealt with, let's just sit down and talk it out. Let's just get to the point. Forget about the weather. Forget about Russia and Ukraine. Let's just get to where we need to get to. And I would rather just be direct. I feel like things get taken care of better. And then no silent treatments. This is one of the worst passive aggressive ways I think that we can cause our husbands to become bitter, because they're just going to get confused. Why is she not talking to me? What did I do now? They don't know unless we tell them. We have to tell them. So, no silent treatments. It's such a passive aggressive way of trying to throw a temper tantrum. And I hate silent treatments. Sarah said, my issue is I always say stuff to my husband like, well, and make an obvious statement like, well, if you don't clean that up now, it's just going to sit there. I come across as a nag. Well, at least you're self-aware enough to know that you're coming across that way. So yeah, I would probably just be like, are you going to clean that up, or are you going to leave it for me? And chances are he might leave it for me, but I don't mind. There's some things I've just chosen not to, pick battles over, I guess. And that would be one thing. So yeah, those are just kind of some things I've done in my marriage. Disclaimer, my marriage is not your marriage. These things might not work with your husband. He might prefer something else. He might prefer that you're not quite as direct as I am. So if he prefers that, then you work with that. So because all husbands are different, yet I've seen that most men are pretty much the same. So I'm just throwing that out there for you. Bitterness with children. Don't hold past offenses over their heads. If things have been dealt with, you don't need to keep bringing it up. Remember that time when you shot the arrow at the window and you broke it and you embarrassed me in front of the entire church? Obviously we can laugh about it now because it happened when he was like 5 or something. But we didn't keep bringing it up in the days after it happened, after he had used his money to pay for it and it was taken care of and resolved. We didn't continue to bring that up. So realize if there's an anger problem, it's yours. It's not your kid's fault. I've often heard parents or moms say, well, if the kids didn't act like this, I wouldn't have this anger problem. If the kids didn't act like this, they're the ones pushing me. No, you had an anger problem. Your kids just showed that anger problem. They brought the anger problem to the surface. And I never had an anger problem until I had kids, because kids would have a way of pushing every single button. They have a way of pushing you to the very extreme, the end of your rope. And I believe having kids has just shown my weaknesses. So maybe you have a different take on that, but I believe having kids has shown the areas that I am weak in and the areas I need to work on. So it is very humbling having children. And just remember, if you have an anger problem, that's your problem, not theirs. They didn't cause that anger problem. They just had that anger problem come to the surface. So realize the joys and blessings that you do have from having children. There are so many joys and there's so many blessings. You can find joy among chaos. I will be having the worst day in the world with the babies, and then they will do something hilarious. And I just have to laugh because it's hilarious. So they always have a way of bringing joy into your life, even if you are having a rough day and it's daylight savings time and they're trying to catch up from the sleep that they lost and it's crazy and chaotic. And our house is the definition of chaos all the time. It's a tiny house. There's lots of people, lots of voices, lots of noises. So it's very chaotic a lot. Yes, getting married also shows our weaknesses. Yeah, it does, because you have to learn to adapt to another person's personalities and inconsistencies and their temper and their, all of this shows our weaknesses. When I was a young girl, single, growing up, I didn't have a problem with my temper. I didn't have a problem with anger. I didn't have a problem with getting annoyed with people. And then I got married and started having kids. Does everyone realize they have an anger problem once they have children? Probably. That's what I would think. Probably. It's tough. Definitely tough. Ashley said, we were counseled to not say always or never in our marriage. I think it has helped. And I think that's true, because how many people honestly think that someone always does something or never does something? Your husband never shows you he loves you. Your husband always makes you mad. It's not true. Exactly, Joyce. Bingo. She said, when I was single and lived on my own, I thought I was a pretty good person. Guess what? Yep. Oh man. I don't think I've ever been quiet, Kirsten. I've always, I'm not like boisterous and loud, but I'm an extrovert. So I don't think I've ever been like quiet and introverted, but I definitely was very even keeled and calm, and I never had anger. Like who was I going to blow up at? I never had anger when I was single. So Melissa said, I noticed a lot of the men folks seem to get really upset when faced with confrontation. I'm not married, but I have observed it a lot. Plus my dad was like that. I wonder why that happens. I think it happens because of male ego. A lot of, as women, I think we're more used to maybe being told, something about us that we don't necessarily like. But with men, they have that male ego and that male pride. I know I'm married to a good man. So I know I have it good when it comes to this, because he is a good man and he is secure in who he is. He doesn't mind having a wife who's a little spunky. He doesn't mind having a wife who can just be direct with him about issues or things that pop up. I have known that some husbands have fragile egos, and they don't like it when their wives are direct. So if it comes down to that, you're going to have to find a way that you can communicate truth when an issue, because issues are going to come up in your marriage. You have to find a way that you can issue truth while still respecting him, and, just trying not to do things that are going to set him off too, because we all have areas that, set us off or we don't like. And the longer you're married, you kind of figure that out about each other. So like I said, I'm just telling you my point of view. And from my point of view, it seems like most men would prefer knowing what the problem is over the silent treatment. Though maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some men do like the silent treatment, but I highly doubt it. Yeah, Sarah, my husband's the same way too. So Um, and yeah, you are true, Joyce. They aren't as in touch with their feelings, and they don't overthink things all the time like we do. We're constantly, how do I have a better marriage? How do, men, if they're being fed and their needs are being met and everything seems fine at home, the marriage is great to them. Their wife seems happy, they're happy, everything's great. They don't really realize when little issues come in and they're not as in touch with their feelings. So, and I do think they tend to let things build up rather than recognize earlier on that, something bothers them or something's off. Yep. I know what you're saying. So yeah, but just remember that all thoughts start in the mind. Back to the children thing. Don't dwell on the bad thoughts and they're not going to take over, because the Bible talks about bringing all of our thoughts into captivity, because our mind, everything starts in the mind. Everything starts in the heart. So as it manifests itself in the mind and the heart, it's going to come out. And that's going to come out in the form of bitterness and discontentment. And it's 7:50. I got to hurry because I want to go over my last point is church, and bitterness in church can happen. It happens all the time. Happens all the time. I've been in this a long time. I've seen a lot of bitterness start in church. So I wanted to definitely touch on that, but let's talk about bitterness really quickly with loose relationships, such, as with people you don't know well. Maybe it's acquaintances in the world. Maybe it's people you work with. When something is said or done about your personality, self-reflect. Don't just brush it off like they don't know what they're talking about. Anytime I've seen a hater's comment about me or someone says something about me, I stop and I think, is this true? Just like Mrs. Reeves was saying last week, we have a basket. Is this true? Nope, it's not. Totally off. Put it in the basket, get rid of it. You don't need to get bitter at that person. Maybe they don't know you. I've had a lot of weird things said about me. People have no clue. They have no clue what goes on in my life. They have no clue what goes on in my church, and they're just throwing stuff out there and hoping it sticks. So they have no clue what's going on they have no idea what's going on about any situation or anything. That gets thrown away with a laugh. Don't care. Don't redwell hurtful times in your life. And this would even be with maybe stuff that happened as a kid. Things that happen as a kid can really define us as we grow up. And we have to be careful that we don't get this victim mentality. Everyone's out to get me, because something was said when you were 5. Everyone hates me. I don't have any friends. Everyone thinks I'm this way. Don't get that victim mentality. Definitely overcome that. And this can even be in the form of screenshots. Maybe something was said about you online, don't revisit that. Get rid of it. Throw them away. Don't keep looking at it and revisiting those times in your life. Don't make it your life's mission to set every wrong right. There's no way. There's no way, especially those of us that do have a public ministry. There's a lot that's going to be said by people that don't know us. Or think they know what's going on. And it shouldn't be our life's mission to like read every comment and find every video and read every article about us. And it shouldn't be our life's mission to track those things down and set everything right, because it's not really our job. I truly am beginning more, I'm believing more and more as I grow older to not defend yourself. Let others defend you. And there's a Bible verse that talks about that, about not singing your own praises, let a stranger praise thee. So I'm becoming to believe more and more that when it comes to me, I'm not even going to try to defend myself, because it's not my life's mission. I have too much going on here. I have too much that I'm doing now to make it my life's mission to go out and set all those right. And then God knows. God sees all, and he knows your heart. He sees everything, so he can deal with it in his time. But let's really go through bitterness in church, because this is a big one. Melissa. Oh, that's funny. This is a big one. Bitterness in church is one of the biggest things that happens in women's lives, families' lives, men's lives, everything. But women struggle with relationships more than men. And usually when there's a conflict in church, believe it or not, I've seen this, it stems from a woman's unhappiness, and she drags her husband into it. I would say 9 times out of 10, when a family leaves the church, it's because the woman has a problem. I don't know why. That just always seems to be it. A little bit of bitterness gets in. her heart from maybe a way a situation was handled, maybe a fallen, severed relationship with another lady. And then this bitterness starts. I've heard of bitterness starting in churches because someone forgot to put out someone's plate of food and it didn't get eaten. So I've heard of bitterness starting over the pastor choosing this color of the carpet and not this color of the carpet. So it's crazy how bitterness can develop. So address problems head on. Okay. So address problems head on. What would this be exactly? Would this be storming into church and we need to deal with this? No, it's if a wrong comes up, you have a little tiff with someone, just resolve it. Ask for forgiveness. Forgive that person if they ask for forgiveness and let it just stay there. Don't let it go throughout all the families in the church. It needs to just stay there and be dealt with. So don't let it fester. It's kind of the same as in marriage, address your problems head on. We're going to have relationship conflicts because this is church and we spend a lot of time with each other. I know ours more than others, probably because we're here all day on Sunday. We have other activities throughout the week. There's soul winning, there's homeschool co-ops and orchestra practice and all this other stuff where we're with each other a lot. So you're going to have relationship problems just like you do at home. You live with people, you're going to deal with relationship things. So address problems head on. You don't have to be everyone's best friend in church. Some women are going to click more than others. That's just nature. It's just going to happen, but you do need to be kind. Okay. So you don't need to form your own clique. You need to try to talk to, all the ladies in the church. So you don't need to be everyone's best friend, but you do need to be kind to people. Small problems become big when you talk with others in the church before bringing it to your pastor. So when you have a problem with something and you don't go directly to either the people involved, I'm a huge believer in that. If you have a problem, go directly to the person involved, or if it's something that they can't fix, going to the pastor. When you go to other families in the church that have no control over or can fix the problem, then you're just causing problems to build and build and build and becoming a mountain, maybe a mountain out of a molehill. Maybe it is a big deal. I don't know. But you always have to go to the one that can fix the problem. And that would be like the one directly involved or the pastor who has the leadership in that position. So exactly, Kirsten. And most of the time it's not. It's that person that has the problem. If she's getting upset at everyone, it's not just, I can't even imagine anyone getting upset at you anyways. What in the world? I can't imagine that at all. So, but yeah, go directly to the person involved, not every other family in the church. And then your pastor will mess up. He's going to mess up. He's human. Hopefully he's humble enough to admit, I didn't do this right. I did, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. But so show him some grace because you want him to show you grace. So try to show him some grace. One of my biggest tips for people in church is be at church for the long haul. Okay. It's stupid to leave over petty things, especially if you're in a good King James, soul winning, Baptist church. It's really stupid to leave over petty things. It's getting harder and harder to find a good church nowadays. And you guys know, if you search for a church, you know how it is. And you also don't realize how badly it's going to affect your kids when you get mad and you don't resolve the conflict. You don't work through the relationships, you leave, and then they have to make new friends somewhere else. That's so hard on kids, especially if you've got homeschooled kids. The church is their life. Because when you're homeschooled, you're at home most of the time, and church is like the only outlet where they have their friends and things. So, I would definitely recommend trying to be in a church to raise your kids in, because that's going to provide the most solid foundation rather than just moving here, moving there. The grass is greener on the other side of the fence. Every church has problems. Every church has things they're going to have to overcome. And rather than trying to find a unicorn church that doesn't exist, be content and don't let bitterness take hold when it comes to things in your own church. So my advice to women, I have a lot of women that reach out to me. Should I leave church because of this? This is going on. This is going on. I tell them, I would only leave for blatant heresy. Blatant heresy for me would be, do they have the correct salvation message? If they're teaching salvation by works, that's blatant heresy. I would definitely leave. different dispensations. You were saved by works in the Old Testament, you're saved by works in the New Testament, or after the rapture. That's heresy to me. I would definitely leave for something like that. But if it's just little stuff that you have problems with, if you go to another, IFB church and they believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, I don't, but that's not something I would break fellowship over. Eschatology is not that big of a deal. Even when it comes to determine what priorities for you. Priorities for me: salvation, King James only. Separated. I do believe in standards, and preaching holiness, preaching against sin. So those are big ones for me. So decide what's important to you, and then I would recommend raising your kids, in a church the whole way through. And one of the ways you can do this is don't be easily offended. Don't always be on the lookout. And I've known a lot of ladies like this that have emailed me, well, they said this, and I just, it doesn't sound right to me. And it's not really it's kind of just borderline. I don't think it's heresy, but it didn't sound right. Give your pastor some grace. Maybe he had a long day. Maybe he's bivocational and he worked a long time and he was tired and something came out the wrong way, so don't be easily offended. Even when it comes to relationship things, definitely have thick skin. Focus on the good of the church. If they aren't fans of the right pastors, yeah. Oh, yeah. Focus on the good that's in your church. Focus on the friendships that you do have. Focus on, that was such a great, sermon. I feel like sometimes people just listen to sermons trying to just we got to find something. We got to find something so that will justify us leaving. No, just get in a good IFB church. There's going to be some things you don't agree with. Eat the meat, spit out the bone, sit down, shut up, get involved, be a blessing. Don't be easily offended. Don't be mad over everything. This all usually comes from things can be going along great with people. And I've seen this. And if you haven't read my article about pastors' wives, just read it because it kind of showed what was in my heart. Throughout the 20 years that I've been doing this, 1 week, someone can be totally fine with you. And then something happens and you can see it come out on their face. You can see it, that little root of bitterness comes, they let it fester. They let it grow and grow and grow and grow. Suddenly they have a bad spirit every time they come to church. They slam in, they sit down, they have a bad look on their face. They're mad about this that's going on. They're mad that you're doing this. They're mad that you're doing a chili cook-off and not a soup cook-off. It's just like tiny little things they get upset about. And then you could just see it. And then suddenly they decide, well, this is what's wrong with the church. And they start nitpicking. We don't like this. And we don't like this. And we don't like that the pastor does this. And we don't like that the pastor invited this person to speak. And we don't like that the pastor let this person sing. And why are we even singing? I don't like that we have singing in church, so it's just all these little things that keep these little petty things. And they get upset when they don't even realize that they're in such a good church. You're in a good Baptist church. Your pastor loves you. He loves your family. He cares for you. He tries to preach messages that he thinks will edify everyone. He doesn't know exactly what's going on in your life because he doesn't spy on you. So he's trying to do things for everyone. And just people get so inwardly focused on just the little petty hurts, and they let that root of bitterness grow that it causes them to make bad decisions. So just focus on the good of your church. Appreciate what you have. It's really hard to find a good church nowadays. And those of you that are in one know what I'm talking about. So bitterness in church is a huge one. I don't know why it is with church. It just seems to, maybe because I am so involved in church and I've been involved for 21 years. So I see this happening. That's where a lot of my relationships happen, is in church and stuff. So but I know people, and you can see it manifest. You can see it start small, and you can see it grow and grow and grow and grow and manifest until usually it ends very badly. Them leaving the church over something that's really not a big deal. So, and we've had past hurts like that, but we've also really, really tried to realize that it was something that that person had to work through. And a lot of people have, and they felt bad about it and asked for forgiveness. And, you know, it ended up being fine, because restoration is always the final goal. That's why you don't go burning bridges. You know, if someone hurts you, you don't need to retaliate and hurt them back. You don't need to say hurtful things to them. You don't need to broadcast all their faults, because we all have faults. And one of the things that drives me nuts is if someone does fall, suddenly it's like, I've seen this with my own husband. When he's in the cool kids club, he's better than, you know, sliced bread. But then when someone has a problem with them, suddenly it's, well, I couldn't stand him for this reason. I couldn't stand him for this reason. And I can't stand him for this reason. Suddenly it's just, let's talk about all his faults, which we all have. And so I try not to do that, even if there is a falling out with someone that's close to me, because maybe you can restore that friendship. Maybe you can restore that relationship. So restoration is always the final goal. But I did have a little bit more on bitterness in friendships. Quickly go through these. Forgiveness, obviously, is one of the big ones. Be open and honest. You have to be open and honest if you're going to have a good relationship. You know, let the petty things go, but address the big things. If there is something that comes, address the elephant in the room, right? Long friendships take years and years to develop. So do church relationships. So be careful throwing them away. Be really, really careful. They do take years and years and years. And if I'm going to put years and years and years into something, I'm not going to casually just throw it away. So those things are important to me. And then my last one is be the friend you want to be. Okay. So if you would like this in a friendship, then you be that for someone else. You know, if you would like your friend to be this way towards you, then you be that way towards your friend. So, you know, be the friend you want, not be the friend you want to be, but be the friend that you want. Be the friend that you want in a friendship. So anyways, that's going to be about wrapping it up for tonight. So I hope it helped. These are some areas, like I said, I've not always been perfect at this. I'm still a work. I have a tendency to hold grudges. Just being real with you about some of my past hurts. I have a tendency to hold grudges. I have a tendency to want to right every wrong. And God has really shown me through the years that he can do it much better than I can. And I have too much going on with my children and my husband and my church and my life and this ministry to other ladies that I cannot let bitterness get in the way of that. I cannot let it take over my life. I have to let things go and I have to move forward. I have to work on my relationships and deal with problems head on. I have to work on my marriage and deal with problems head on. And I don't have time to get involved in all this other sideline drama. So bitterness is definitely something that can cause drama in your life, in the life of others. And I really don't want that. So it is something I've had to work on through the years. It is one of my weaknesses and I have definitely not arrived. I work on it daily, but it is something. When in doubt, just keep your mouth shut. This right here is what gets us in all of our trouble. So I'm learning more and more to just sit back and observe and just hold my peace. You know, if it's necessary, I will speak, but I'm learning more and more not to. So I feel like the tongue gets us in the most trouble as women. So I don't know if you guys have that problem, but I sure do. So anyways, that is it for tonight. I hope it was a help. Leave a comment. The more comments, the more likes that you do, the more it pushes through the algorithm. So most of my videos that have a lot of comments, YouTube will put it on the recommended. So definitely leave a comment, even it's just, I listened, you know, this has helped me in my life, whatever it is, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're closing in on like, what is it, 2,600 or something? I don't even know. I think it is. Sometimes when I go to check comments, I'll look and the subscribers are always going up. So I guess that's a good thing. I am thankful for all the new subscribers I am getting every week. I'm thankful that you ladies take the time to listen and give your feedback. And I appreciate all of you. And I am praying for you, especially the ones that have emailed me about pregnancy and different things like that. So join the Gently Led Sisters group if you haven't yet on Facebook. And you just have to answer a few questions and then you can join. So I'm thankful for all of you. I hope you have a great week try to turn the news off. That's my suggestion for having a good week. And invest in your relationships this week. Invest in your marriage, invest in your children, invest in your church. It'll be worth it. So we will see you ladies next week. Goodbye.